Welcome to The Nation Wants No More, the podcast that gives hysterical news the send-off it deserves. I'm Anjana Menon. Each week I take the news, real, ridiculous, or just plain noisy, and give it a gentle twist of satire. If you've ever screamed into a cushion after watching the headlines, this one's for you. Quick, sharp, and slightly unhinged, because really, the nation has had enough. So, confession time, I've officially broken up with Netflix crime series Why Stream Fiction When the Reality is Even More Bizarre? I've been struck by the kind of stuff we get to see on prime time nowadays. The latest was this horrific case of a newlywed bride who allegedly hired hitmen to bump off her husband during their honeymoon in Meghalaya. Our TV anchors, given their love for sensational stuff, named it the Meghalaya Murder and rolled out an entire mini-series of CCTV footage, grainy clips of the couple, and expert panels with the subtlety of a bulldozer. So, it turns out the bride was in love with someone else and figured the simplest way out of a brand new marriage was to plot a murder. And just when I thought this whole thing couldn't get any wilder, who shows up? Everyone's favorite news anchor. You know, the guy who turns every segment into a noisy boxing match. He didn't just disagree with calling it the Meghalaya Murder. He went absolutely ballistic on anyone using that term. Why, you ask? Well, because according to him, murder is strictly a Delhi or UP kind of thing. Meghalaya, too peaceful, too pure, and possibly too far to get to. He wasn't trying to kill the Meghalaya Murder moniker because it was wrong. We all know the murder absolutely happened there. No, he had a problem with it because, get this, he went to school there. I mean, seriously, that's like saying, please don't call it an Orissa scam, even if there was a scam, because I visited the beaches there. Objective journalism has officially jumped off some cliff in Shillong. What started as a state where a murder happened has now become the state that murdered journalism. I was honestly just waiting for retribution to kick in. And it did. In designer loafers wearing 7 bracelets and large solitaire earrings, going by the name
Vijay Mallya.
Yes, the king of good times made a comeback, not to India, but to a 4-hour podcast, 4 hours. That's not a podcast, that's a hostage crisis with a mic. Not on TV, and definitely not with our Meghalaya-schooled TV overlord, but with a young podcaster. 2 mics, a couple of Hussein paintings in the background, and a quirky tiger statue on a table as a prop was all it took. And millions tuned in. I'll admit it, I didn't bother at first, but then my WhatsApp groups were pinging like someone had just found a lost Tipu Sultan artifact, and wham, the FOMO hit hard. It's a very modern, deeply woke condition I suffer from. As the self-declared princess of poor times, I had to get in on it. If it was good for 24 million viewers, hell yes, it was good enough for me. And there he was, Mallya, looking like a proper guilo. That's what Hong Kongers call white folks. It literally means pale ghost. It hit me right away. This dude wasn't lounging poolside in the Bahamas anymore. The guy who used to tan with Kingfisher calendar girls was now dodging relentless British drizzle or pitter-patter, if you want to be a bit twee about it. And in that moment, it all made sense. The most thrilling thing in Chuan, his current sanctuary, is the exciting knit and natter club for old ladies and the odd high tea of cold sandwiches in a village shop run by volunteers. I say this with great confidence because I went through the village's 60p magazine to look for things to do. Well, there is plenty to do in the village, 4 things to be exact. A very enjoyable senior citizens lunch in February, maypole dancing in May, a classic car and craft show in August, and if you're lucky, an annual scarecrow competition. I'm already excited. And if you're craving sun, the furthest you can go are the shingly beaches of Brighton, which offer absolutely no scope for sunbathing. Why? Well, because there's hardly any sun, and when there is some, there's no room on the beach because the English flock there for free pebble acupressure on the beach. Nature has been generous to England in that way. In Chuan, a 4-hour podcast is more thrilling than a Formula One race. I'll admit it, I was hooked. Mallya was smooth, almost wise, dishing out business advice like he was back on the cover of Forbes. Marketing tips, brand talk, the works. I even started feeling a little soft about his old school charm. And then, bam! His airline, Kingfisher, he said, collapsed because of oil prices and mean government taxes. And all those people he begged for help, they left him hanging. Of course, they're all dead now, so they can't exactly answer back. But here's the kicker. He was forced, yes, you heard it right, forced, compelled, and so on, to keep feeding passengers because apparently Indians love food, he loves food, etc., etc. Now, I love a soggy samosa in the sky as much as the next person, but here's my business acumen, which is second to none. American carriers saved millions by ditching peanuts. I kid you not, peanuts. Getting rid of a single packet of salty joy helped many an airline CEO keep their boring jobs and their fancy homes. But since we're on the topic of food, let's talk Greta Thunberg, not Garbo. She dropped into the week's chaos with a pre-recorded Gaza solidarity video in a green cap, cheerfully saying that if we were seeing it, she'd probably been kidnapped by the Israelis en route to Gaza with food and essentials. Yup, kidnapped, not just blocked. Well, at least the Israelis are learning something from us, even if it's VIP kidnapping tricks. Here in India, we've mastered the art of high-profile kidnaps. We sometimes snatch legislators right before government formation. Some parties whisk them off to fancy resorts, wine and dine them just so the other side can't poach them. Greta, though? Way harder to please than our lot. Her big trauma? They kept blasting music while she was trying to sleep. She got so fed up with the noise torture that she actually signed her deportation papers just to get back to some quiet European corner for a decent night's rest. Honestly, she should swing by India for some real resilience training. Take it from me, I'll never forget those late-night bhajan marathons by some neighbor, blasted on speakers so loud the windows shook like they were possessed. Always during exam season, of course, just to make sure you stayed up all night and revised and re-revised because sleep was clearly not on the cards. Meanwhile, I actually dug up my old emails and, surprise, found my old Kingfisher miles. Turns out I had enough to fly business class to London like a queen and drop in on the king of good times himself. But alas, the king ended all that when he fed us meals we couldn't finish, on planes we couldn't afford, for miles we couldn't encash, all while he was out hunting for the biggest manor in the most boring village in England. And so here I am, grounded, podcasting from my living room instead of sipping champagne in some English manor. Hit subscribe, show me some love for the sake of Mr. Mallya. Catch you next week. Until then, stay woke. But whatever you do, don't let your schooling mess with your logic.